Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Heart Attack, Negative Sun, out June 10th on Atomic Fire Records. The album has 10 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is the band's third full-length studio album. They are a French thrash groove metal band. Now, I love the design of this record. It's not perfect, but I love the design of this record, and a lot of that comes from the intro track that bleeds into the second track of the album and gives the record a sense of continuity. Really important. If you're going to add an intro, add something that brings value to the table, that makes the record feel complete, that allows you to open the door, the experience of the record to the listener, allowing the listener to keep himself connected and stay engaged with the rest of the album because of how the record started off. You can never have a first impression twice, and the intro track and the following track are kind of the first impression of any album. So you have to come out with your best foot forward, and I really felt like they did this with this record. This is also an album that from that point on becomes a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but it doesn't move up and down, it moves sideways. This record stays on path, it stays in its lane, it never really deviates from this lane. All this does is it moves from one side to the next. This creates lateral movement, but movement nevertheless. Movement that's really important in order for the album to feel more dynamic, in order for the album to feel more engaging, but still keeping everything close, still keeping the album very balanced and very cohesive, allowing itself to have the best of two different worlds. And this is important because you don't have a sense of repetition and you don't allow the songs to become a little bit mundane or diluted as you progress through it. The only thing out of change in this design is move a song like Negative Sun a little bit more towards the middle of the record. It's not a track that changes too much of what the album is all about. It has a lot of similarities to what comes before and what comes after, but it has also some characteristics that really break them apart from what the rest of the album is trying to put forward. This song has a few more pauses than any other track on the album, and those pauses in the middle of the record changes your perception. It allows you to reset your eyesight, making the second half of the album perhaps as strong, as dynamic, as impactful as the first half with that little reprieve. Sometimes you need a break. You don't want that wall closing in every single song because it becomes a little bit too much to bear. That track has great qualities, it has great characteristics. Moving it up in the order, moving more towards the middle of the track listing would definitely increase the overall feel, the overall presence of this album. As far as the soundscape is concerned, quality of sound, quality of execution, very powerful record, very well-defined album. This is a thrash groove metal album that brings influences from the past but has more of a modern touch, but not overly modern. So it finds its own path, it finds its own way in order to create a sound that just stays with you. It's not overly produced, it's not underly produced. It just found the right amount in order to give this record life, energy, quality, great definition of elements. I mean, you can hear everything on this record. You can tell everything apart. You can deconstruct the songs and then construct them back together in order for you to feel the full brunt of their force. I just love the sound. I love the experience that this record gives, staying very consistent from beginning to end, just changing how the formula is put together. Now, the drums on this record is not the calling card of the album, but the power, the heaviness, how much they pack that back end of the sound and the foundation that they create, that it's undeniable. I don't think the guitars could be as driven, as groovy, as impactful all around without the drums doing all the dirty work behind them. But the guitars are definitely the calling card. You're definitely coming to this album and you're going to stay within this album because of the sound of the guitars, because of the execution of the guitars, because how they come across, the elements that they provide, and the life and energy that they give to this album. If you look at the groove side, they're super groovy. If you look at the thrash metal side, they're very heavy, very gritty. But then you look at the solos on this record and you have a lot of elements coming in and having an impact. Classic heavy metal, thrash, groove, death metal. All of that is alive and well when it comes to the solos, and every single solo on this record added value to the song that they were in. It was not an addition, it was not an add-on, but rather an addition of value, making the songs feel bigger, making the songs feel better, more complete all around. And then it comes to the vocals. The vocal performance is very dynamic. While sound-wise, you perhaps have an album that moves side to side while staying in the same lane, vocally this album goes up and down. The change is the dynamic between the harsher side of the vocals with the cleaner side of the vocals really creates life, really creates movement. It has an immediate impact on how you're going to perceive this album, because when you're listening to a song, you're never really sure what style, what approach you're going to get. And being on your toes the whole time makes the record more engaging and makes the record more interesting. There's almost a Christmas gift at every single turn that you have to unwrap to see what's on the inside. What else could you ask for from an album like this? An album that I feel is going to put this band at a different level. I can't believe that this band is not as popular as they should be, because this album shows the quality that they have. Great sound, great execution, great way of constructing an album, making the album incredibly playful in terms of the energy that it gives, but still heavy, still brutal, still very intense and filled with aggression. This is a phenomenal album. If you're looking for thrash metal records for the year of 2022, this album has to be in the top 5 discussion for sure. It has all the right attributes, it has all the right elements, all the right characteristics to make this a standout album, an album that's going to open doors for the band themselves. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with World Consumption. Groovy, heavy, just ripping. This track rips. The guitar sound is excellent. The drums pack the sound behind it. The formula of this track is pretty much the formula of every single song. The condiments is what's changing, but the formula itself stays very close to home. This sense of putting the drums behind, packing the sound, allowing the guitars to push forward, to be the drivers of the track itself, allowing the song to become a little bit more fluid, a little bit more continuous. The chorus is far, far, far heavier than the verses. The verses are a little bit more dynamic, they have a lot more movement, but because of that, they lose a little bit of the heaviness that they could carry. They become a little bit thinner, if you will. But the chorus, because it's a little bit slower, it has less movement, you're allowed to pack on a lot more sound, becoming the track heavier, becoming a little bit bigger. And I love that dynamic because it creates ebbs and flows throughout the entire movement of the track. The solo is great. It picks up the mood and the atmosphere and a little bit of the melody that exists already in the chorus. It just expands upon it. It adds a little bit extra. It turns that melody from a 10 all the way to an 11. And this makes the solo stay very connected, very close to the overall construction, to the overall experience of the track, really completing the song all around. Next you have A Twisted Sacrifice featuring Rasta of Decapitated, and this is one of the heaviest, if not the heaviest track on the album, both musically and vocally. The impact that Rasta and Decapitated have on the sound, on the experience of this song is undeniable. Their DNA is all over this track. It has an incredible flow. It mixes melody with grooviness, with heaviness, allowing all of these different worlds to come together, creating a perfect combination of sound and experience. The solo is very explosive. For a track that is this heavy, I was really surprised that the solo went in this direction. It felt a lot brighter, it felt a lot lighter, it felt a lot larger than life, but it also had a little bit of an old school flavor to it, almost a little bit of a Slayer vibe in terms of how that solo comes across, in terms of the explosive nature that it has, how bright it is, and how much it expands the footprint of the track. But all around, an absolute banger of a song through and through. Last but not least, Negative Sun, the track that I mentioned earlier that I would like to see a little bit earlier in the track listing. This song has incredible attributes. It has a great opening. It's very soft in its opening. Instrumentally, it just feels complete. It just feels like it's giving you something that you haven't really had before. It almost feels like an instrumental track all around the way it's put together, and that opening sequence allows you to feel that way towards it. Once you settle into the track, the song feels a lot more dynamic. The vocals come in, the vocals are very dynamic on this track, allowing you to oscillate the song or allowing to give movement to the track without having to change too much of the soundscape or how the sound is put together. And it is an interesting approach for a track like this because it creates almost two different worlds. The way the song started and the way the song continues through the middle until you get to the end, it's worlds apart. It feels like you're listening to two different songs, but the transitions are so smooth, so well done that you don't see those gaps, that you don't see those differences You're walking from one world to another, but by the time you realize you're in a different world, you're already halfway through it. That is the kind of movement, the kind of construction that this track offers. The guitars really drive the experience all the way through. The drums pack the weight behind it. This creates this thick wall of sound that when it's heavy and when it's moving, it really feels like it's approaching fast and closing in. The chorus vocally is super hooky, and the sound behind it helps define that hooky aspect of the vocals, of the lyrics, of how everything comes together in that incredible chorus that this song has. This is it. Heart Attack, Negative Sun, out June 10th on Atomic Fire Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.